When most of us think about Christianity, we envision a path of following Jesus, adhering to his teachings, emulating his virtues, and worshipping him as separate from ourselves. But what if Jesus never actually wanted followers? What if, instead, he was inviting us into a radical recognition that would transform the very foundation of our spiritual understanding? Have you ever wondered why, despite years of devout prayer and faithful practice, you still feel a profound distance between yourself and the divine? What if everything you've been taught about your relationship with God is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of Jesus' most revolutionary teaching? Has this ever happened to you? You find yourself in a moment of crisis, desperately praying for divine intervention, feeling like your words are merely echoing in an empty room. That sense of separation, that feeling of distance between you and God, isn't just uncomfortable. It's the very illusion Jesus came to dispel. The revolutionary truth hidden in plain sight throughout Scripture is that Jesus wasn't establishing a religion of followers, but awakening us to our inherent divinity. When he boldly proclaimed, "You are gods," in John 10:34, he wasn't speaking metaphorically or making some special claim only about himself. He was revealing the fundamental truth about your actual identity, a truth so profound that religious institutions have often obscured it because of its revolutionary implications. Most of us have been conditioned since childhood to approach our spiritual journey from a position of fundamental separation. We've been taught to view ourselves as somehow distant from the divine, like orphans pleading with a stranger for help or intervention. We beg, we plead, we bargain, all from this underlying assumption that we are somehow disconnected from the very source of life itself. But this is precisely what makes Jesus' approach so radically different. When you examine his words and actions closely, you notice something remarkable. Jesus never begged, he never pleaded. He spoke with the unwavering confidence of someone who fully understood his relationship with the divine source. This wasn't arrogance or spiritual pride. It was the natural expression of someone who recognized an eternal truth that existed before time began. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover might completely reshape how you understand your place in the cosmos and your relationship with the divine. The distinction between following Jesus and becoming as he is represents the difference between perpetual spiritual seeking and genuine spiritual awakening. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. What Jesus understood, and what he was desperately trying to help us understand, is that the divine nature isn't something external to you that you need to somehow reach through spiritual effort. It's your original nature, your true identity beneath all the layers of conditioning and false beliefs about separation. This isn't just a beautiful spiritual theory. It's the fundamental reality of your existence that changes everything about how you experience life. When you truly grasp what Jesus meant by declaring your divine nature, everything transforms. Your prayers shift from desperate pleas to conscious recognition. Your spiritual practice evolves from striving to allowing. Your entire experience changes from struggle into natural, effortless unfolding. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you approached each day, each challenge, each relationship from the same consciousness that Jesus had when he declared, "You are gods." How would your experience transform if you truly lived from that understanding? The truth is, we've been reading these words through the lens of religious formality for so long that we've missed their revolutionary power. But when you strip away centuries of theological interpretation and truly see what Jesus was pointing to, what you discover is nothing short of a complete revelation about your true identity. This mindset shift is the hidden key that unlocks a completely different journey in your spiritual life. The profound truth is that you are not separate from the divine, desperately seeking some external connection like a cosmic orphan. You are the very expression of divinity itself, living and breathing through divine inheritance right now, in this very moment. This is not spiritual theory. This is the fundamental reality behind your existence. The declaration, "You are God's," in Jesus' consciousness wasn't merely a lofty theological concept. It was a direct recognition of source, expression, and substance. Think about this revelation for a moment. Just as divinity expresses through all creation, through every flower, every star, every breath of wind, the divine expresses through you. Your thoughts, your feelings, your very being are not separate from the creative force that birthed the universe. They are expressions of it. Behind the scenes of our religious traditions lies this transformative understanding that has often been obscured or diluted. Jesus wasn't establishing a path of followers who would worship him from afar. He was demonstrating the impact of living from the recognition of your divine nature and inviting you into that same consciousness. The decisions we make from this understanding are entirely different from those made from a mindset of separation. Throughout history, those who have glimpsed this truth have experienced profound transformations in every aspect of their lives. Their journeys shifted from seeking to finding, from begging to recognizing, from struggling to allowing. This isn't about becoming spiritually arrogant or claiming some special status. It's about aligning your conscious awareness with the deeper reality of your being. If this message about your divine nature resonated with you, hit subscribe to join our community of seekers exploring these profound spiritual truths together. When Jesus proclaimed, "I and my Father are one," he wasn't making an exclusive claim that applied only to himself. He was unveiling the universal truth about every human being's relationship with divine source. This oneness isn't something you need to achieve through decades of spiritual practice or religious devotion. It's not a distant goal to be reached after years of effort. This oneness is the very foundation of your existence. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring a powerful metaphor that illuminates this truth in a way that's impossible to forget. When we truly understand the relationship between the ocean and its waves, we begin to see the profound significance of Jesus' revelation in an entirely new light. If you're feeling a resonance with this truth deep within you right now, write in the comments, "I am divine expression." Imagine the vast, boundless ocean and its countless waves. When you look at a wave, what do you really see? The wave isn't separate from the ocean trying desperately to become oceanic. It already is ocean, temporarily expressing in wave form. Its entire substance, its very being, is nothing other than ocean. The wave doesn't need to strive to reach the ocean. It is already one with it, simply expressing as a unique formation for a brief moment in time. This metaphor reveals the profound truth behind Jesus' teaching. You are not a human being trying to reach God. You are divine life, temporarily expressing in human form. Every breath you take, every thought you think, every emotion you feel, all of it is divine life in expression. The substance of your being isn't separate from the substance of the Creator any more than the wave is separate from the ocean. The revolutionary impact of this understanding can't be overstated. It completely transforms your journey from one of constant seeking to one of progressive recognition. Behind the scenes of Jesus' ministry was this fundamental revelation. He wasn't asking us to follow him like disciples trailing behind a master. He was inviting us to the same realization that he embodied, that oneness with the divine isn't something to achieve through spiritual practice, but the very foundation of your existence. This oneness is already complete, already whole, already perfect. It's not waiting for you to become worthy enough or to perform enough spiritual practices. It's simply waiting for your recognition. The decisions you make from this understanding create entirely different results than those made from a consciousness of separation. When you approach life's challenges from the mindset of, I am one with my source, rather than I am separate and need help, everything shifts. Consider the revelations that emerge when you truly grasp this. Prayer no longer becomes about convincing some distant deity to help you. It becomes a moment of conscious alignment with the truth of your being. Healing isn't about fixing something broken, but about allowing the wholeness that is already present to express more fully. Abundance isn't something to chase after, but the natural state of your being when aligned with your divine nature. The mindset transformation that occurs when you stop seeing yourself as separate from the divine and start recognizing your oneness with it completely revolutionizes your entire spiritual path. It's not about becoming something you're not. It's about unveiling what has always been true. This is what Jesus demonstrated through his life, not a special status that only he could claim, but a universal truth available to everyone who recognizes it. When you begin to live from this recognition, your experience of life undergoes a profound metamorphosis. The journey of spiritual growth becomes less about acquiring something external and more about allowing your true nature to shine through the temporary human expression. Just as the wave doesn't need to become ocean, it already is ocean. You don't need to become divine. You already are divine expression. The hidden truth that Jesus was pointing to through his life and teachings wasn't that he alone was one with the Father, but that this oneness is the natural state of every being. His invitation wasn't worship me as separate and special, but recognize in yourself what I have recognized in myself. If you've experienced even brief moments of this profound sense of oneness with all of life, even if just for a fleeting instant, type, I've felt this oneness in the comments below. This revelation completely transforms the very nature of the spiritual journey itself. When you truly grasp what Jesus meant by, you are God's, something profound happens. Your entire approach to spirituality undergoes a revolutionary shift. Instead of being on an endless quest, seeking something outside yourself, some distant divine connection that always feels just beyond your reach, you begin recognizing what has always been present within you. Behind the scenes of this transformation is a complete recalibration of your spiritual mindset. Most traditions have taught us to view ourselves as spiritual seekers, always searching, always striving, forever reaching for some future state of enlightenment or divine connection. But Jesus wasn't establishing a religion of followers perpetually seeking. He was inviting us into a recognition of our shared divine nature, a recognition that dissolves the very need for external seeking. Goldsmith, one of the great mystical teachers of the 20th century, revealed something profound about this understanding. He taught that grasping your divine nature dissolves the root cause of all human suffering, the belief in separation. Think about that revelation for a moment. The primary source of our pain, our anxiety, our sense of lack and limitation all stem from this single misperception that we are somehow separate from our divine source. When you begin living from the consciousness that the divine is your actual source and substance, not just poetically or metaphorically, but literally, everything changes. The journey of transformation isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about unveiling what has always been true beneath the layers of conditioning and false beliefs. This isn't merely philosophical theory. The impact of this shift in consciousness creates tangible changes in how you experience your daily life. Your sense of identity expands beyond the limited human personality to include the divine qualities that are your true inheritance and nature. The decisions you make from this place of understanding create entirely different results than those made from a consciousness of separation. Jesus' invitation to become as I am wasn't a call to worship him or to follow a set of religious practices. It was an invitation to freedom from suffering through the recognition of your true nature. He demonstrated what it looks like when a human being fully realizes their divine identity and lives from that realization. The journey he modeled wasn't about becoming something alien to your nature. It was about recognizing what has always been true. When this recognition takes root in your consciousness, you stop experiencing yourself as a separate entity desperately trying to connect with God. You begin to experience yourself as an individualized expression of that same divine life. The boundary between you and the divine begins to dissolve, and you experience a wholeness that has actually been present all along. If you've ever had moments where you suddenly felt a profound sense of connection with all of life, where the feeling of separation briefly dissolved and you experienced a glimpse of this oneness, type, I've glimpsed this truth in the comments. Now let's explore what happens when this profound understanding begins to reshape your daily spiritual practices, particularly in how you approach prayer. The practical power of this realization becomes crystal clear when you're facing life's inevitable challenges and difficulties. Consider the stark contrast in mindsets. A person who perceives divinity as distant and separate naturally prays from that mindset. Please God, help me with this problem. Their entire approach stems from a consciousness of separation, lack, and dependency on an external power. It's the prayer of someone who fundamentally sees themselves as cut off from the divine source, but someone who has awakened to the truth that Jesus revealed when he said, "You are gods," prays in an entirely different way. Their prayer isn't about begging an external deity for intervention. It's about recognizing what's already present. They acknowledge that divine wisdom isn't something distant they need to acquire or convince to help them. It's already present within as their true nature and inheritance. This revelation completely revolutionizes the prayer experience. Prayer evolves from a desperate plea to a powerful recognition. It becomes less about asking and more about acknowledging what already is. This mindset shift doesn't just change your words, it alters the entire energy and effectiveness of your spiritual connection. The hidden truth behind Jesus' healing ministry reveals this principle in action. When we examine how Jesus approached healing, we discover something remarkable. He never begged God to intervene from some distant heaven. He never pleaded for divine assistance as though it was separate from him. Instead, he simply acknowledged the divine presence right there in the situation. Jesus recognized a fundamental principle. Where divine presence is acknowledged, wholeness must naturally express. Where divinity flows unobstructed by beliefs in separation, the expression of that divinity is already complete by the very nature of the relationship itself. This wasn't miraculous in the way we typically think. It was the natural manifestation of spiritual law working through someone who fully understood his divine identity. Behind the scenes of every healing Jesus performed was this recognition of divine presence, not as something to be called down from heaven, but as the very substance and reality of the person standing before him. He saw beyond the appearance of disease or limitation to the divine reality that was always present, but obscured by human belief in separation. The transformative impact of this understanding in your own life cannot be overstated. When you approach challenges from this level of consciousness, recognizing the divine presence that is already there rather than begging for help from afar, you align yourself with the same spiritual principle that Jesus demonstrated. This journey of revelation isn't about acquiring special powers or becoming superhuman. It's about removing the veils of misperception that have hidden your true nature from yourself. If you've ever experienced a moment where simply shifting your perception transformed a situation without any external change occurring, write "perception is everything" in the comments. This profound shift from seeing yourself as separate from the divine to recognizing your oneness with it completely revolutionizes your entire spiritual journey. For your entire life, you've likely been taught to seek God's help as if you were fundamentally separated from divine supply. This seeking mindset creates an endless spiritual quest, always reaching for something that seems just beyond your grasp. But here's the breakthrough revelation that changes everything. Divine resources aren't something you need to hunt down, earn, or convince to come your way. They're your inheritance through the simple fact of relationship. Just as a child naturally inherits traits and resources from their parents without having to beg for them, you naturally have access to divine qualities through your essential connection to the source. When this understanding truly takes root in your consciousness, your entire prayer life undergoes a remarkable transformation. It evolves from begging into recognition, from anxious effort into restful knowing, from desperate pleading into peaceful receiving. The entire energy of your spiritual practice shifts from striving to allowing, from seeking to finding what was always present. This mindset transformation doesn't happen intellectually, it happens experientially. It's not about adopting a new belief system, but about awakening to a deeper reality that was always true before you recognized it. The decisions you make from this place of understanding create entirely different results than those made from a consciousness of separation. Here is the secret that changes everything about your spiritual journey. When you pray acknowledging you are God's as Jesus meant it, you're not trying to get God to do something for you or convince divine power to intervene in your life. You are simply remembering what is already true. Divine life isn't something that might flow to you someday if you're worthy enough. It's already flowing through you right now. Divine wisdom isn't a distant quality you need to acquire through decades of spiritual practice. It's already present within you as your true mind. Divine substance isn't separate from you. It's already expressing as your very being right here, right now, in this moment. Subscribe now to continue this journey of spiritual awakening as we explore what it truly means to live from the understanding that you are God's. Behind the scenes of all effective spiritual practice is this fundamental recognition of present reality rather than future hope. The great spiritual masters throughout history weren't people who mastered techniques for manipulating divine energy. They were individuals who recognized and lived from the truth of what already is. Jesus wasn't establishing a path of "follow my teachings." He was demonstrating what it looks like when a human being lives from the consciousness of "I and my Father are one," and saying, "You can live from this same consciousness too." This hidden truth about your divine nature doesn't mean your human experience suddenly becomes perfect or problem-free, but it does mean you approach those human challenges from a completely different level of consciousness. Instead of facing life's difficulties from a place of separation, lack, and limitation, you face them from a recognition of the divine resources that are already present within your being. If you've experienced even a glimpse of this profound truth, that you are not separate from divine source, but are its direct expression, type "I am" divine expression in the comments below. Let me share what makes this understanding so powerful. It's not just philosophical or theoretical, but intensely practical. When this divine realization truly dawns in your consciousness, you begin to experience tangible shifts in your everyday reality. Healing happens naturally, not because you've mastered some advanced spiritual technique, but because you've remembered the truth of who you are as divine expression in human form. This transformation doesn't require manipulating external forces or convincing God to help you. It simply flows from alignment with reality. Think about what happens when you remove a dam from a river. The water doesn't need to be taught how to flow. It simply returns to its natural state. Similarly, when you remove the mental barriers of separation, divine qualities express through you naturally as your authentic state of being. People who embrace this understanding often report remarkable breakthroughs in areas where they've struggled for years. Supply appears more effortlessly, relationships harmonize spontaneously, chronic conditions that resisted conventional treatment begin to resolve. But here's the crucial insight that prevents disappointment on this journey. This recognition of your divine nature doesn't always produce immediate physical results or instant miracles. What it does produce is an immediate shift in consciousness that then gradually manifests in your outer experience over time. This is realistic spirituality, not magical thinking that promises overnight transformation. The journey unfolds naturally, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, depending on how deeply ingrained the patterns of separation consciousness have been in your life. Behind the scenes of every authentic healing is this fundamental principle: inner transformation precedes outer manifestation. Your consciousness shifts first, and then your circumstances begin to reflect that shift. Consider how a seed transforms into a plant. The moment the seed is planted and watered, its transformation begins, but invisibly beneath the surface. For days, sometimes weeks, nothing appears to be happening. But profound changes are occurring at the invisible level before any visible growth appears. Your spiritual awakening follows this same natural pattern. The recognition of your divine nature initiates an immediate inner transformation that will eventually manifest outwardly, but in divine timing rather than human expectation. This perspective completely revolutionizes how you approach healing, abundance, relationships, and every other aspect of human experience. Instead of desperately seeking external fixes or magical solutions, you focus on cultivating the consciousness from which all authentic change emerges. Jesus demonstrated the end result of this process, a human being fully awake to their divine nature, and invited us to the same transformation. He wasn't saying, "Worship me as special and different from you." He was saying, what I have realized, you can realize too. The consciousness I live from is available to you as well. If you've experienced a situation where your inner transformation led to outer changes in your life, type "inner creates outer" in the comments below. Now I want to explore what might be the most profound dimension of understanding Jesus' declaration, "You are God's." The radical recognition that you inherit divine nature, not human limitation. This revelation completely transforms what you believe is your natural state of being. Most of us have been conditioned to accept limitation, lack, struggle, and fear as our default human condition. We've been taught that we must strive and struggle to acquire qualities like peace, wisdom, love, and abundance. But this revolutionary understanding flips that entire paradigm. Peace is not something distant that you must acquire through years of spiritual practice or struggle. It is your inheritance, your natural state as divine expression. Wisdom is not something you fundamentally lack that must be painfully accumulated. It is your birthright flowing naturally from your divine nature. The same applies to every divine quality: abundance, joy, love, creativity, and strength. This perspective creates a complete mindset revolution. When this realization becomes your living consciousness rather than just an intellectual concept, you stop operating from fear-based decisions and begin living from divine assurance. Your actions flow from a completely different source, not from the desperate need to get something you lack, but from the overflow of what you already possess in your divine nature. Behind the scenes of this transformation is a fundamental shift in identity. You no longer see yourself primarily as a limited human personality struggling to connect with divinity. Instead, you recognize yourself as divine expression, temporarily experiencing human form. This doesn't make you arrogant or separate you from humanity. It actually connects you more deeply with all life by recognizing the same divine presence expressing through everyone and everything. But this profound truth requires more than intellectual understanding. It needs to become your lived experience. That's where practical application becomes essential. Let me share a powerful practice that helps anchor this recognition in your daily consciousness. Begin by sitting quietly each morning for just 10-15 minutes before your day unfolds. This isn't complicated meditation requiring special techniques. It's simply quiet recognition. The revolutionary aspect is that you don't ask God for anything during this time. Instead, you simply acknowledge the truth. I am divine expression right now. My breath, my consciousness, my very being in this moment is divine life expressing. As thoughts of problems, concerns, or limitations naturally arise, don't fight them or try to suppress them. Instead, gently return to recognition. Divine presence is my true nature. Whatever appears as challenge or lack in my human experience, the divine reality of wholeness and abundance is present now as the truth of my being. Throughout your day, particularly in those moments when you feel yourself straining against circumstances or becoming anxious about situations, pause for just a moment. Take one conscious breath, then silently acknowledge this truth. Divine intelligence is operating in this situation right now. This simple practice creates a remarkable shift in your experience. You'll literally feel yourself releasing the weight of trying to control outcomes through limited human will alone. If you've tried positive thinking techniques without lasting results, comment below with recognition over affirmation to share how this approach feels different to you. As we begin to live from this profound understanding that Jesus revealed when he said, "You are gods," something remarkable happens. The spiritual journey that once felt like an uphill battle transforms into a natural unfolding of your divine nature. You begin to experience life not as a separate human entity struggling to connect with divinity, but as divine expression, temporarily having a human experience. This revelation doesn't make life perfect or problem-free, but it fundamentally changes how you experience those challenges. You approach them from a completely different level of consciousness, from recognition of wholeness, rather than from a sense of separation and lack. And this makes all the difference. I share these teachings because I've witnessed their transformative power both in my own life and in the lives of countless others who have embraced this understanding. If you found value in these insights and want to continue exploring these profound truths that liberate us from limitation and reveal our divine nature, consider becoming part of our community by subscribing. Each week, we dive deeper into these life-changing principles that Jesus actually taught, not to follow him, but to become as he was. If something within you resonated deeply with this message today, if you felt a recognition stir within you as we explored what Jesus truly meant by inviting us to become as he was, rather than merely follow him, I'd love to hear from you. Simply comment, "This message awakened something in me, so I know this found the right heart." And if you found value in today's exploration, that gentle tap on the like button helps others discover these transformative teachings who might be seeking exactly this understanding right now. There's a video right here that takes this understanding even deeper, exploring how to apply this divine recognition in healing work. Click and continue with me there as we uncover more of what it means to truly embody the consciousness that Jesus lived from, not as his followers, but as his equals in divine expression.